co-founder to ask burning questions that are keeping you up at night and get answers from experts that have worked with hundreds of founders and their teams. Welcome, I'm your host today, Kirk, Drage, and I'm the CEO and co-founder at LeapSheep. At LeapSheep, we're on a mission to flip the 95% startup failure rate by making expert startup building guidance accessible, affordable, and personalised for all founders. I'm in the host chair today in place of the fabulous Sarah Bell, who is travelling throughout the UK this week. Welcome to the founders that have joined us live. It's fabulous to have you here. This show is all about supporting founders to get from idea to a business model that can get to product market fit and scale up safely with avoiding the 95% failure rate. And thank you to the founders that have sent questions in prior to the show. Please drop any questions that you have into the live stream comment section if you're watching on YouTube or on LinkedIn. I'm joined today by my co-host and LeapSheep co-founder and expert startup building advisor, Terri Soar. Welcome, Terri. Terri's our head of product management at LeapSheep and has worked with hundreds of startups supporting them to get from idea to their first million in revenue. How are you, Terri? How's your week been?
Yeah, great. Really, really busy. Popped into something tech last night to say hello to a bunch of founders and investors. So that was quite exciting for here in the Brisbane team.
Awesome. And today we're absolutely delighted to have with us Pete Ceredig-Evans. Pete is the CEO and co-founder of Try with Mirra. He has a fabulous vision to transform the online shopping experience for fashion brands, driving substantial e-commerce growth. He is a product and strategy tech leader with a focus on building self-managing, high-performing teams and crafting transparent product strategies. Pete excels at providing direction, fostering autonomy, and solving customer problems swiftly and effectively. His expertise in addressing complex challenges with lean, scalable solutions, coupled with his strong business and technical acumen, establishes him as a leading authority in using technology to create opportunities and drive meaningful change. I think, as you'll see through this conversation, that is happening in spades at Try with Mirra. Pete, it's awesome to have you here. I know you're super busy and you run off your feet at the moment, so I really appreciate you making the time.
Really great to be here. Thanks a lot, Kirk and Terri. Excited to have a chat.
Yeah.
So I'll start off with a real softball question with you. I understand you're up on the Gold Coast. What's your favourite restaurant up there?
There's lots of really good places to eat. I'm not sure if you've spent much time up here. There's a new place in Palm Beach called the Cadillac Supper Club. Kind of Parisian style menu. It's really beautiful food. But I also love the surf club. There's a surf club just down the road, I think, on 7th Ave, and love going there for a few beers after work.
Yeah, fabulous. We've just got a brand new surf club opened up here at West Beach, which is it's just glorious, absolutely glorious.
They're always in the best spot, aren't they?
Oh, so good, so good. Awesome. Well, let's jump straight in. I'm really keen to explore, some of the great success that you're having with Try with Mirra. And let's just start off by talking about some of the origin story. Like why e-commerce? Like e-commerce has been around for 20 plus years now, 25 years. It's a model that has really been cracked by Amazon and Shopify. Where is the opportunity in e-commerce that you see, and what does the future of e-commerce look like, and why did you decide to get into that business?
It's a really cool question, and I think the part you just touched on in terms of we have seen so much development and so much progression across e-com, and like you mentioned, businesses like Amazon, and they have scaled incredible businesses with a focus on the customer. But where kind of fashion e-com concerns, there's always been a strong emphasis on innovation and technology. It's not just about healthy profit margins; it's about building to last as well. So it's about the whole, having the whole operating model, the supply chain, a fantastic website, really good fulfillment, WMS, all of those systems in place. But then it's also going back to the customer as well, and making sure that you're constantly keeping the customer at the heart of those decision makings. In terms of where it's going, I feel from my perspective and our perspective at Try with Mirra, e-commerce is really the answer for people who want to go to the shops but aren't able to because they don't live nearby. They want a convenient way to shop. When we look at amazing apps like Airbnb and Uber. They're built around network and convenience from a usability perspective. And with e-com, for example, a customer might not be able to get to the stores or doesn't live near the stores, wants the ease and convenience of being able to order online, but having that in-store experience online. I think we've seen e-com kind of in some ways remain the same in terms of buy now, try later for many years, which is actually the opposite of how people shop in a store.
Yeah.
When someone goes into a store, they don't buy now then try later. They pick up the items, they hold them up to see the quality of the fabric. They'll try them on in the changing rooms. Once they're happy, once they're confident with the fit and style, they'll then purchase them. And so I think from an opportunity perspective, what we really envision is the fact that we can move towards that model. And that's what we're doing at Try with Mirra. So we are creating the ability for customers to be able to try now and then pay later. Again, really bridging that gap between retail and online. But broader on from that as well. I think it's going to become, I think there is so much opportunity to create a more one-to-one relationship with the customer in terms of personalization, recommendations, and harnessing AI and machine learning to really give an easier, more personalized shopping experience. But that's probably enough.
When it comes to e-commerce, it's been around for such a long time, but it really the phrase that comes to mind is the future is already here, but it's not evenly distributed. So we're still in a world where we've got physical retail, and there's still retail stores that have no online presence, and yet we've got online, and we're still trying to, I think, figure out what does the future of retail kind of look like. As you say, there are all these sort of problems that are not yet really solved for e-commerce, is there?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Terri, interested in your thoughts. You've worked with a few LeapSheep clients in the e-commerce space. How do you see the challenges for e-commerce and the opportunity going forward?
Yeah, well, there's so many different opportunities, I guess, and people are looking for like packages. Like founders are looking for services where they're already all in one. So they've got the supply chain, they've got everything all bundled as one. And what I find is really interesting at the start of, I guess, a startup where you're looking at the discovery side of things is still being able to get, customer feedback on what experience they want, and without, what do you need to build for the experience for your customers to get their problem solved and the solution in an easy, convenient way that's obviously cost effective. But then it gets really complicated really quickly when it comes to e-commerce. So it's like, oh, well, I'll just go and buy a package off that's already been done over here. And then you've got to live with clunky experiences that don't really fit for purpose for your customer. So I think we've got a bit of a way to go there.
Yeah.
That's a really...
Sorry, go on, Pete.
No, I was just going to say, there's... with e-com as well, we can talk about the opportunities from e-commerce traditional practices and processes, but then also, with technology now, there are so many apps that are optimizing various touch points of the customer journey across various different web store platforms, whether it be Shopify, Magento, Neato, WooCommerce. And I think it's almost, there's so many, and there are businesses that are in need of certain problems being solved, but it's about the right app at the right time for the right business. And so it's almost about, yes, there's so much opportunity, but there's also a lot of challenge as well. I think a lot of challenge in place and being a bit like, okay, what is the right solution? What's the right tech stack? What is going to be the right, I guess, opportunity and tech for our business to solve the most important problem for our customer that's then going to in turn generate intrinsic business value for us. So with technologies evolving at such a fast rate and more apps being available, and I think accessibility is a big part of it as well. The challenge doesn't come having access to this. The challenge is harnessing the right tools at the right time.
Yeah, 100%. I think that the takeaway here is e-commerce is a long way from having an ideal, perfect customer experience. There's just so many opportunities to make that a better. I mean, if you're an e-commerce shopper, I'm sure you can relate to the frustrations at all stages of the buying journey. There's opportunities to create better experiences, and I think Terri, that's what we've seen with plenty of startup founders that we've worked with that see those opportunities. Whether it be guys like Marshall at Clevertard doing some great things on improving the way that customers can get service and support, high quality service and support out of their ecom brands, or whether it's Zoe and Nikki at Know My Fit to help customers find the right sizes, which can be very frustrating. But I think the problem that you're solving, Peter, I think is a really interesting one. Tell us a little bit about that, because the e-commerce space is obviously massive. You're really focused on fashion. What's really the problem that you're trying to solve?
Yeah, cool. So really, initially, it's from a customer's perspective in terms of a shopper. The problem is solving will this fit? Will this item that I'm buying online fit me? Will it look good? Will I like the style? Will it meet the quality expectations I have when I'm looking at this? When I'm looking at the product tile before purchasing it, this problem from a customer's perspective. And I spoke to a customer the other day who used, as in an actual shopper, so one of our merchant brands. I spoke to one of their shoppers. I just called her up to find out how it went, and I said, "Well, why did you use Try with Mirra?" And she said, "Well, they have these the kind of size charts on the product page, and I always get my tape measure out when I'm buying these dresses, but they're never quite right. So Try with Mirra enabled me to add a few items to the cart, check out with no upfront payment, and then have 3 days to try them on at home, and then make that decision." And so she said, "I used it just because it solved the problem. I was able to get the right fit, and it made the whole returns process easy." So I guess from the shopper's perspective, it's solving that problem of it's giving them peace of mind that they're going to get the right items. From a brand's perspective, the average cart abandonment is 71% across fashion e-com.
It's crazy
globally.
Such a high number.
Yeah. I mean, it is. And there's lots of factors that go into cart abandonment. But we worked with a few brands recently, big brands, and Hotjar on a project to look at why these customers are abandoning cart, but more qualitative stuff. So not so much, performance or shipping fees, but actual understanding why. And a big part of that for fashion was customers are unsure if it's going to be the right fit, the right size, if they're going to like it. Okay, so that's the problem we're really solving for the brand, because it's like, well, if we can solve that problem for the customer and actually reduce that cart abandonment and create that whole kind of shopping experience, make it really easy for the customer, they're going to be able to get that conversion, reduce cart abandonment. Now, look, their returns, when you just have to look at some of the businesses doing really well in the US and the e-com, and they've got the best returns processes. You look at Zappos, 365 returns process. Some businesses in Australia, they have very, very bad return processes, and then they're unsure why they've got low conversion rates and why it's hard to convert new customers. So I guess we've tried with Mirra, because we enable the customer to have a few days to try the items on at home and then make that purchase decision. We're seeing an uplift in new customer acquisition or new customer conversions for these e-com brands, and a much higher satisfaction score and happier customer as a result of that.
Yeah, brilliant. I really want to drill down on something you said there, and that is that you've got, like many startups that we work with, you've got an economic buyer, which is the fashion brands that you work with, but then they've got a customer. So you've really got two customers of your platform. Haven't you? How do you think about that research phase and really understanding the problems of both your customers, who are your economic buyers, and your customers' customers? Because you sort of inferred some interesting things about some of the research and things that you're doing.
Yeah. As in, so how did we kind of, I guess, start? Is that where you want to go?
Yeah,
Because I can answer that, or do you want to?
just how do you think as a founder about how much time you should spend on the economic buyer, which is the person that you're going to make a sale to, versus their customers who you're really empowering and helping? How do you spend your time? How did you how do you learn where the problem is? And
we spent all of our time there across both of those pieces. It's a great question. Like, our vision is to create the ultimate online shopping experience, which is for the consumer, that drives e-commerce growth, which is for the merchant. Okay, so that has just remained steadfast the entire time. Okay, so we knew that this would solve the problem for the customer from a value perspective and a usability perspective if we could build it right, because we saw Warby Parker in the US doing this.
Right.
A big eyewear brand. You go on their website, you see home try on the top of their nav, and the first thing you see when you land on their site is try 5 frames on for free. Okay, and that has been a key part of their value prop, or key kind of brand promise and competency that has driven their business to be the successful big online retailer it is today. From an online perspective. And so when we were building Try with Mirra, we focused initially on eyewear brands on Shopify, and we had this end-to-end working app. And then we first of all were like, okay, if we want to get to the consumer, we have to go to the merchant first. Okay, so I spoke to a merchant. They're like, yes, this is great. They knew it was working for Warby Parker, but they didn't have millions to build it themselves. So when a group of kind of a small group of tech nerds go over and say, hey, look, we're going to give this thing to you for free. Do you want to do you want to use it to get? And they were like, yes.
But you had really strong validation of the problem by the sound of it, just by talking to that merchant.
Yeah, exactly. And so they immediately were like, yes. They became our first customer, and then it was the case of, right, we have this kind of degree of separation between the consumer at this point. And so then it's really up to the brand to either communicate it, because I'm not sure how much you have seen or used our app, but when you go onto a merchant's website, you'll, on the product page, underneath the add to cart button, it'll say try before you buy or home try on. They can decide what they want to put. So then there's no control from us. The customer then will land on their website and go, oh, cool, I can do try before you buy, and then they go through that. And then once they've purchased the item, or at least checked out, we send them a link, an SMS to our web app, which allows them, once they've received the items, to select what they want to keep or return. And then we are in kind of communication with them, and so, but we're not trying to pull the customer out of the brand's ecosystem. We just want to really be just a facilitator, like an extension of their checkout. It's all about the brand and the consumer getting the right items, and then becoming a loyal customer of that merchant. We are just facilitating this home try-on service as an extension of that checkout.
I love it. And how much time have you spent with those consumers, the end consumers, to really understand their experience and how to improve that?
Yeah, I mean, great question. So, well, a lot of time. I mean, I call customers every week. Sorry, I should really start talking to that. We've got 2 sets of customers. I call merchants every week, and I call the shoppers every week. So I call both. Find out, obviously, check in how things are going. I can see Terri's
face lighting up here. We have this conversation with the founders every week. And it's great to see this happening in action.
Yeah, absolutely. I have, like, one of my goals every week is to speak to at least 10 of each. And sometimes I'll speak to like 50 different merchants and 20 customers or whatever, and I always just want to just get some feedback, and so. But another way we do this is we are able to synthesize data from other tools. So we have a tool called SmartLook, which sits on our web app, which is essentially a React app, which has the customer portal, which when the order is delivered to the customer. Let's say you, Kirk, have ordered, I don't know, 2 pairs of jeans and a sweater. You've gone through the checkout on a merchant's, e-com store. You haven't paid anything up front. You put your card details in. We've authorized it. Once the order is delivered to you, we send you a text with a link, and it just opens up the web app. You don't even have to log in because we authenticate it through your mobile. and you don't have to download anything. We are viewing those sessions on a smart look tool, so we can see how people are going and if they get stuck on anything and how that's going. You know, we've just released our V2 customer portal with more kind of more kind of feature rich and exchange capabilities and other things to really, like, for example, one thing is we've created a silent discounting tool. I mean, e-commerce discounting is almost a taboo word. Discounting is an important part, and deals is an important part of some brands, but other brands, it's been terrible. And there's a phrase which is like, discounting is like heroin. When people start, they don't stop. And it can destroy businesses and brands. So when I say a silent discount, is in the back end of our system, we can create a keep 3, get X% off, which doesn't show up on the website at all. But once, let's say you've ordered these 2 pairs of jeans and a sweater, once you've received those items, you go into the portal to complete it, and you're like, oh, actually, if I keep 3, I'm going to save 10%, which
it's not the reason people are going there.
And so then it's encouraging you to keep more. So in terms of that, we have like a review, like a mini little survey at the back of the app to capture some feedback. We speak to the customers. We look at the data in terms of, at the moment we have 86% of Try with Mirra orders. A customer buys at least one item, 14% who are returning all items. 81% of those customers are going back in and repurchasing within 12 days. We're looking at that data a lot. We're trying to understand who the types of people are using the service, and what value they're getting out of it. And then, of course, like I mentioned, just speaking to them is the best, because that's all the juice. That's all the stuff that you're like, oh, I didn't even think of that.
I mean, that's so valuable, Terri. We talk about this all the time, don't we? About how important direct real-time conversation is with the customer, because although you've got some some phenomenal stats there on usage and return rates and those sorts of things, there's nothing like talking to a customer to understand their mindset and behavior and really understand their problems. So it's so good to hear you doing both of those things. And I really love to ask you something that Terri and I talk about with our clients all the time is, when you're a new founder and you're trying to reach out to your customers, there's often a power imbalance. You're a brand new startup, particularly if you don't have a product or customers yet. You're going and speaking to established businesses, and it's hard to overcome that power imbalance where they're a big established business and you're just somebody with an idea essentially, and you're saying, hey, I want your time to help you solve some of the problems. And one of the ways to overcome that is to talk to those businesses' customers. And if you know as much or more, ideally, about their customers than they do, that gives you some power to be able to add value. And that's what power is. It's an ability to add value. So I'd be really curious if you've got some experience where you've been able to use those direct conversations you're having with the end consumers to help educate your merchants and build better relationships with them.
Yeah, let me just try and think of some. Let me just try and think of some examples specifically around that. I mean, just on the first point you mentioned around the power imbalance, I was very aware when we, so we've got over 100 different fashion merchants using our app now, and all of those merchants have stayed on. Our first merchant, Childwear Eyewear, based down in Byron Bay, is still using our app today. They were our first customer. We have a lot of validation, a lot of credibility now compared to we did 18 months ago. I remember that feeling of calling these businesses and essentially trying to say, no, we don't have a customer, that you'll be our first one. I didn't try and create any bravado around it. I was very honest and transparent and really wanted to just basically say, look, I'd love to pick your brains on this and get some of your insights and feedback. And if this is something you feel would be valuable, then I'd love to give this to you and collaborate with you on getting some early, on really shaping, on really kind of shaping this product in order to solve this problem for you, i.e. to enable your customers to try before you buy. And because I kind of framed it like that, I was able to build a relationship very quickly with these businesses. And that's got easier over time, especially because a lot of them, the bigger ones as well, like, oh, we'll come on board when you're working with that. And I'm like, oh, well, that's interesting. And now we are. And they're like, okay, we'll come on board now. And I'm thinking, well, and and you have the early adopters who come on and stuff. But one thing that we were able to, the one thing that has been such a big driver has been data. So the fact the two main things have been, we are seeing conversion rates increase and unlocking new customers. Like when I say new customers, I mean first time customer to a brand. They haven't shopped with the brand before, and then they shop with them for the first time using Try Before You Buy. Yeah. And we've got, and so that's one of the key data points. And then the second one being they are purchasing more. So not the initial transaction, that's always going to be more because they're adding more to the cart. But once they complete their order, that final sale is consistently between 30 and 60% greater than their normal AOV. That you can't hide from that data. And so that has been the piece which we say, look, this actually is these customers or this audience who've now converted with you, which you're targeting and you're trying to sell to, have used this service. And it's something that solves a problem for them, and they're wanting it. It's like the value risk. It's like there's four things. Will someone, you've got this thing and you think it solves a problem, but will people actually choose to use it? Will they want to use it? And so when we have this data now, we've leveraged off that. We say, look, this is the data. This is what's happening. And then we let them go for it and start seeing it for themselves.
It's super clear that you know your data. It's great to hear you talking about those stats because you can really see the impact that you're having on the brands and the value that you're having to their customers, and you can talk about that with data. It's just such a great example of doing in practice what we teach. It's fabulous. Yeah,
great. Thank you. Good to hear. Good to hear.
Terri, any thoughts from you? Because I know you're having these kind of conversations every week with founders. Data versus the amount of hustle needed for get out there and to start talking to customers. Any thoughts come to mind for you?
Yeah, as you're saying, Pete, you had to recall what it felt like to go to those initial businesses and say, well, you would be my first. So, but it is hustle, isn't it? It is actually being, I guess, having the courage and the bravery, maybe initially, to say, there's no harm in asking. Like, what have you got to lose? And be prepared to keep asking. Be prepared for some people to say, no, I'm not an early adopter. I need to see so and so on board first, and just don't give up. You've got to keep asking, until you reach a certain number of no's, I guess. Maybe I don't even know what that number is, but if you're definitely trying your your target audience, and you can experiment with the way that you're wording it and the way you come across, keep asking. You're gonna expect some no's, but you'll eventually find a yes if it's something that's actually people want.
Yeah,
100%, Terri. And I can't stress enough the importance of removing friction and that barrier to entry with those early adopters, but then also having time to measuring time to value and being so focused on delivering value quickly and then showing that value and being able to measure it. But then also at the same time not have any barrier to entry or any kind of friction, so you can basically help the merchant validate it, their commitment. Because even if you give someone something for free, if they're using it, they're still changing. It's still changing an effort. It's still they're doing something different.
Yeah, but behavior change is hard, right?
Behavior change, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about I think one of the unfair advantages that you have, Pete, in building Try with Mirra, and that's you've got a background in product management, and I think this is we see hundreds of founders, and I can see people that have got a product management background and understand product management. They really have an unfair advantage in the startup world because you really understand the technology side and what it takes to build a product. you understand the market side and what it means to find a problem worth solving that can be a business, and build a business model around that, and the finance side, because they're the three pillars of product management. So I'd just love to hear your perspective on how that background in product management has served you in being a startup founder.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm so it's just luck that I ended up going into that career.
Every product manager ever, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, and I would definitely not be where I am today, or the business where it is today, if myself and my co-founders as well hadn't come from that background. And because of the fundamental, like you mentioned, some of those fundamentals of product management, and then the others, such as discovery, ideation, testing, how you develop products with an empirical approach, developing them collaboratively as opposed to sequentially and with a defined approach, and then being able to understand the costs and the risks. But then there's also the kind of other nuances in terms of the right size of team, and how to create a product strategy, and how to tell the story right, and the right kind of story at the right time, and when to lean on people to collaborate and when to lean on teams to actually cooperate. And that's given us a lot of confidence and conviction in how we build and how we run. So yeah, my kind of introduction to product management was really Scrum, and then from there it kind of expanded. I was working with
I think you're going to answer the question I was going to ask, which is what sort of project were you originally working on when you started your product management journey?
Yeah, I was working with there's a brilliant company called MX Store. They're a fantastic success story. They sell dirt bike parts, gears, and accessories. They're based on the Gold Coast, Australia. They grew to 100 million in about 8 years. I was working in the tech team there as a business analyst, then kind of Scrum Master, product manager. We were building our own, essentially, ERP and WMS tool. At the time, there were not kind of off-the-shelf WMS, OMS, and IMS tools that were suited to the needs of the business in terms of SKUs and categories and
so just for the audience, WS is warehouse management system.
Yeah. Warehouse management system, inventory management system, some of the systems that really are at the core of supply chain management with e-com. And my very good friend, who's one of the owners of that company, and we became very good friends working together, called Jason Hill, and he's now actually on our board of directors as well at Tri of Mirra. He's an amazing CTO. Him and I really kind of just passionately started learning everything about product management, agile principles, and applying it in our work. And we were doing courses in the evenings and extra reading, and we both just became obsessed with that, how much better we could run that team and drive more business value and user value and reduce risk by following some of these principles that people had laid out and tested and worked on with very successful companies and teams.
What were some of the major ahas you had as you sort of went on that journey and started to build your knowledge?
Oh, that's a good question. Major aha moments. It sounds so obvious, but it's very easy to suddenly be in a room with people, especially when they're very smart people, and they go, and they go, oh, we should do this, oh, we should build this. And then never asking why. Why are we building this? What problem is it actually solving? And I remember we got to the point where everything we knew that we were building was focused on solving an outcome as opposed to just a meaningless output. And it was this obsession around measuring what we were building and why we were building that led us to be able to iterate so quickly on different parts of the application and deliver value to the customer, i.e. the people picking and packing in the warehouse, or using the ERP system to create purchase orders or managing invoices. And that was a real aha moment. And I was like, because then you sometimes meet people who get so excited and focus on the solution, and you're like,
yeah.
or
I
just
think
the
that's
output.
such an important point, because I talk to so many engineers that have either come out of existing roles or maybe they've just graduated from uni. I'm talking software engineers here, and they're brilliant software engineers, or they could be AI engineers, and so they really understand how to build high quality product. But what you've just said there about, if you're not building high quality product with the line of sight to customer and the value, and we see so many teams that structure themselves so they put the engineering team, I use the phrase, in a cupboard, where they're disconnected from the customer. They've got a roadmap and they're delivering stuff and they're agile and they're efficient in terms of the delivery, but that feedback loop to figure out, is it actually adding any value to the customer, is just completely missing. And so I think what you've described there is really the essence of product management. It's connecting your engine, your development capability that can create immense value, but connecting it to the actual customer and the problem, and making sure that it's actually creating the value. It's like, I don't know, it's like tires on a car or something. If you don't have great grip, you're just not going to get any traction.
Yeah, and I love what you just said then around not keeping them in the cupboard. I remember, I think before I joined that team, my earlier training was classic business analytics and processes, waterfall processes. And I remember hearing someone be like, "Oh yeah, we'll have these meetings and then we'll pass those requirements to the engineers." And this was probably 10 years ago, but now over the last kind of maybe 8 years, one of the best Scrum teams. Well, up to that point, now I work with an incredible team now, but at Raiden, which was the software entity working with MX Store, I think we had a team of 6 of us at one point, and it was just brilliant, cross-functional team, and the engineers were always in the conversations with the users. Often they're close to the problem, but they can also think of different types of questions that me as a kind of product manager wouldn't think of. And that can really expedite the speed and also the accuracy of solving that problem. Also, another thing as well was these principles that I learned in Scrum, which were the kind of pillars of Scrum, which are transparency, inspection, adaptation. And I think those are, you hear them a lot in different areas of kind of software companies and product management, and I think it can apply to, for us it's so good, because we're remote first, but we go in once a week for the team who are based in Australia. And but all the work is so transparent. We inspect across not just software but also kind of like marketing, and inspect the work regularly, and then look at it and be very, don't have biases towards, if we need to make a change or pivot based on what we've just learned, then we will do that. We don't make assumptions. We try and operate in a very lean way, focusing on just what we know right now. And so, I've kind of waffled on a little bit, but in terms of aha moments, there were just so many. There were so many aha moments. I think
it's interesting what you say there about cross-functional teams. It's one of these buzzwords that we sort of throw into conversations all the time. But what it really means, and what you're saying, is that you need to have all these different roles: the designers, the engineers, the sales people, the marketing people. You need to have them to all have line of sight to the same information, and not have them go off into silos. And it's that sort of divide and conquer that you see so often in larger companies, where everyone goes off in their corners and does their work and sort of comes back very, very rarely to sort of sync. It's having everybody across all the information, that transparency and visibility. That's really what that cross-functional team means, and it's so powerful when you get it working properly.
100%. And then it's about having very clear, measurable goals, whether you're like product goals or departmental goals across other functions, and then getting out of their way and getting out of that team's way, so then they can innovate, they can collaborate, and you've got the right size team and with the cross-functional skill set who are able to move that product forward incrementally, develop new features, whatever it is. if it's internal kind of APIs, or if it's or whatever it is, to increase the value of that product to the user. You have all the people, and ideally in a team between kind of 5 and 8, just because that's going to allow them to move faster.
Yeah. I love what you're saying there about getting out of the way. I think, also what you're saying there is you really want to allow, the individual strengths and the disciplinary expertise of, say, designers or developers or marketing people to rise to the surface. So you don't have any one person that's sort of overbearing and driving an outcome. You want to take advantage of all those skills and experience. That's part of a great product management team, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you want and that's kind of, those should be rooted in your kind of values as a business in terms of your ways of working. If you're kind of micromanaging two things, or you're blocking teams from, I don't know, you're restricting that creativity or opportunity for innovation, you're actually going to be holding back the team, and it's going to be not as enjoyable, and you're not going to get the best from the team as well. So it's that's something I've really learned as well. So but you can only do that by creating really good direction, really strong goals, really great environment, which they know that, okay, cool, well, this is the outcome, and again, bring it back to that outcome. Not just the goal shouldn't be, I think roadmaps that talk about features are boring. Roadmaps should be talking about problems. Because the features, it doesn't really mean anything. Exactly. Talk about the problem and the outcome that you're trying to achieve. And then have some specific kind of commercial metrics tied to it as well.
100%. Terri, any thoughts on working with, because we do a lot of product manager training, and founder-led product management is something that we strongly believe in. For those founders that don't have a background in product management, is teaching them product management. It's really hard to hire good product managers. Do you have any thoughts on that, Terri?
Yeah, I think your comment earlier around people just tend to fall into product management, like I'd be interested to understand globally how many product managers intentionally became product managers. And so many studies have found, that it's more about hiring a product manager for the traits rather than necessarily their skills or experience as an established product manager. Can they be qualitative and quantitative? Can they understand high level strategy, but also the detailed and connecting the dots as well? And obviously, great, obviously influencer, but being able to articulate things pretty concisely to get the points across. There's a whole science behind, I think, the traits behind an ideal product manager. And so it does mean a lot of the time within a startup, yes, the founder obviously starts with the product management hat on as well, naturally, because they're the ones doing the discovery, talking to the potential customers, the audience, understanding the problems to be solved, then thinking about the business model. So what's the strategy and how does that look across the business? So quite often product management in startups is not just within the software development team or the DevOps team or the R&D team. It's actually across the whole business. You've got to be thinking about, okay, how does what marketing do we need? When is the right time for that marketing for the stage of our product, for our business model hypothesis? So you start thinking about all the parts of the business and standing up all the V1s, the version 1s of everything. And developing all the most basic way to move forward to make progress as quick as possible without over investing in anything.
That's such a good point. And on top of that, it's managing all that stream of data. Like you mentioned, Terri, it's across all of the business. You've got your customers, then you've got your potential internal users or feedback coming from them, and then you've got what's happening in the market as well as a data point. And so it's managing all of that.
I always imagine multiple spinning plates, and you're kind of trying to keep them spinning, and every now and again you have to add a new plate, get that spinning as well.
100%. And how have you found, based on your initial experience in that larger, more established business, how's product management changed in Try with Mirra, where it's really a startup and you're starting from that 0 to 1? What's your experience been there?
So we really, when it was just 3 of us, we're now a team of 10. We were kind of doing the same as we were. It's just basically the same kind of build, measure, learn. We only, is this solving a customer problem? Is this, let's build this as lean as possible first, get information and then make decisions based on what we've just learned. Is at the core of kind of how we work. I think for me personally, I'm learning to let go more and actually hand over more responsibility, because I'm the me and my 2 other co-founders, that we've all got very different skill sets, and like Michael, our CTO, very much background in just technology. He's a genius building software for years, self-taught. Shannon is an absolute operations operator, anything process, engineering. And then myself, I'm the kind of product management nerd who has a passion for that. And so I think as we've been, we've got a team of 3 engineers, designer as well, and in terms of the tech, and really kind of handing over responsibility. I know I don't have to, although I'm still at every single sprint planning session, I know I don't have to be there.
Yeah.
I feel like we've got such, we're super aligned on we have really clear product goals, really clear kind of, we have a very clear, and they're very much tied to our kind of, the main business objectives.
Yeah.
You could ask anyone in the company, the 10 employees, what is the number 1 goal? They'll say it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
What's the number 2 goal? They'll say it. And so from a tech perspective, the engineers are completely aligned and in sync with the wider business context. So if something comes up, they'll be like, well, okay, we still have sprint goals. At the moment we're running 3-week sprints. That's what works well for the team.
Yeah. Brilliant.
And but we're able to just kind of move and document and develop and build and test at speed as well. And so I think a learning for me has been not deviating from fundamental product management principles, but also applying the right tools and the right amount of certain processes for what we need right now. And as you know, startups, your role and the way you work and the kind of priorities change sometimes every week, but you're always on this. So you have to be very kind of agile in the sense of being able to quickly move and pivot, and but also have that trust on your counterpart and your team member that they are just going at 100% as well, and you can completely rely on them. So, and I think a lot of it comes back to the culture, and then comes back to, and this is why values are so important, and hiring A players, which you hear everyone talking about, but it's like for startups, it is just so critical that you have the right people. Because it is a different breed. We are a different, we are a different breed of people working in a startup. It's not for everyone. You might, as a startup, you might hire a sales exec who's used to earning 600 grand a year, and he'll come in and he'll be absolutely useless for you because he's used to everything being served to him on a plate. 100%. He hasn't got that kind of hunter gatherer. Maybe he's good at executing if he's got a book of customers that he's targeting and all the tools and all the budget. But if you need builders and you need people who get their hands dirty, have that entrepreneurial mindset.
No, it's great. It's one of the things that's really coming out in the conversation here is you've obviously built the right kind of foundation right from day one. So you're talking about vision, you're talking about values, you're talking about direct line of sight to the customer, you're talking about the iterations and doing things at speed, like all those things. It sounds like you've done that from when you were 3 people, and then you've just sort of scaled that culture and mindset. And I think a lot of businesses fall into the trap of sort of thinking their role is more like it is in a corporate, and then sort of bolting on extra roles. But really, when you're a small team, even though you've got a small number of people, the diversity of tasks that you have to do is still massive. It's just that you do them for a shorter amount of time, and that's really, I think, the way that you've got to view a startup. It's really and that's why we use a tool, don't we, Terri, called the role-based org chart, where there's usually 50 or 60 roles on a startup, even from day one, because you have to do all these different things, and each person might have 10 or 15 roles that they're doing, but they're only doing them for half an hour a week or whatever, because there's not much to do, but there's still huge diversity of things to do.
I honestly, that sounds like an amazing tool. I'd love you to take me through it. I'd love to actually have a look at that, because that has been, we use Miro, as it's a key part of how we work, how we plan work, how we document, how we collaborate on things. We have so much, we have Kanban boards in there, we have onboarding process flows, we have architecture diagrams, we have marketing roadmaps, we have product roadmaps and product backlogs, and all of the execution happens in terms of task management down in Jira. But what you're talking about, and we've definitely tried to work on these org things and like lines of responsibility, but it's always evolving. So love your expertise at some point. And
I'd love to share it. It's taken a long time to figure some of this stuff out, because there's no roadmap for these early stage companies, as you know. But no, super exciting. It's really great to hear your story of building the team and the culture, and very much founded on that sort of product management kind of approach. I wanted to change gears in the last 10 minutes or so that we've got, and talking about another thing that I think you're doing so fabulously well, which I think is turning out to be a real mega trend in the startup world, which is building in the open. And when I was in Silicon Valley 10 years ago or so, building in stealth was very much the kind of playbook where you would raise some money, you would go find a small number of customers to work with, you'd build your product, you would optimize that product with that small number of customers, and then you would do a big launch and really try and scale marketing and sales. But we're really now seeing more and more companies right from day one building in the open, looking for much more feedback and much more of transparency, so that customers can find them, employees can find them, investors can find them, and have a lot more transparency. And I think it takes a lot of stress out of the startup building journey, because you don't have to put on this sort of facade that everything's going awesome when sometimes it's really not, and you can get the help when you need it. So I'd love to hear you talking about that, because I see you posting a lot. You post about your customers, you post about the progress you're making. So how did you come across this mindset? Is it just the way that you work, or is it a conscious decision?
So I started posting about 3 months ago, maybe 4 months ago. I still feel like I'm a complete rookie with it. Why did I start doing it? I saw other people doing it, other apps. I saw Hamish from Order Editing doing it, and I was, he's young but doing really well, and I love the energy, I love the openness, and I thought, why not? I'll just give it a crack. For me, I wanted to connect. I wanted to do it not necessarily from we're looking for investment perspective. I didn't even want to do it from we're looking for talent. I wanted to do it to speak to get customers.
Yeah.
I had a very clear strategy, which was, so the decision makers for us are e-commerce businesses, kind of C-suite level, or head of digital, head of e-com. And so I was already connecting with quite a few of these people anyway in LinkedIn. So I started creating content talking about some of the problems around e-com, cart abandonment rate, margin, customer acquisition costs increasing, etc. Problems that are very prevalent across e-com fashion, but problems we are also addressing. So I almost initially started without being very salesy, and then started getting more connections and so on, and then I did some very kind of open, honest posts about our product, and because I think a lot of people talk a game about their app or their product, but people don't often actually see it emotional. They don't actually understand how it actually works or what problems it solves. It sounds clever and smart and all these technical words, but what is it actually doing if I'm a user? And I think people really buy into you when they can understand it and put themselves in a user's shoes. And because we are a home try on, Shopify or checkout solution for e-commerce brands, the brands themselves are in fact end consumers because they shop online too. And so I wanted to just kind of I kind of did some kind of product demos explaining what we're doing and why we're doing it and the problem it's solving. Then also kind of dripping in some storytelling around my experience as a co-founder, a CEO of a business that is, going through initially bootstrap and raised and then building a team and getting customers and getting revenue. And sharing some of those, highs and lows and challenges and stresses, and mixing that kind of content in with being transparent about what we're doing and why we're doing it. And then, like you mentioned, the data, we are seeing very consistent, strong commercial outcomes for merchants through using our app. So I'm using that as a, hey, look, this is happening. This is a case study. And off the back of that, getting kind of people in our ICP coming into my inbox, and some of our biggest customers today have come just from I've posted something. They've messaged me saying, I don't know if that would work. What about this? And then we jump on a call and they go, oh, you solved that problem. Let's chat, kind of thing. So
it's so great to hear you say that. We're talking to founders about this all the time, and I think this has been a revelation for me, because this is not the way that startups were built. When I was in Silicon Valley, and sort of cutting my teeth, and so it's a transition, and I think younger people that are sort of born online find this easier. But if you're a little bit older, this may feel very unnatural. I know it sort of feels unnatural for me. If you're more of an introvert, you're a bit shy, it's probably more unnatural for you as well. But to hear that you're getting those kind of results is fabulous, because, and we're seeing the same thing in our business, where if you're not doing this, you have to reach out to people to find them. But when you're doing this kind of authentic posting, it allows people to find you and come to you. And the quality of the kind of relationships that seek you out and want a conversation with you are generally a lot higher, I find, than the ones that you're thinking that you target as, your ideal customers. Are you finding a similar thing, or have you had a different experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing to touch on as well is, like, I saw a guy called Alex, who's a brand expert, Alex Antolino, or something. I'm probably butchered his name, but he's a weapon. He used to work for Typeform, and he is a brand and a creative weapon. I saw him at a talk, and he talked about how content marketing has changed so much, and how you could spend someone can create a video on TikTok with no editing, and it's very raw, and that drives way more sales and engagement than someone who spent 50 grand on a very polished video. And so I think part of creating content on LinkedIn is that kind of creating the engagement first, is actually trying to connect with that customer or with that person, and in a way that is being open and it's raw, and that's almost like the first step. So I'm seeing that. So I'm seeing that kind of be a key part of it as well. And then building that relationship with you as a person before you then kind of go into that. So I think there's a human element.
Yeah, I think this is one of the big mega trends in startup building. Terri, we're seeing this all the time now with founders wanting to learn these skills and figure out how to start talking in the open, and start off before you've even got a product. You can do this just talking about the problem, creating problem-centric content. It's some of the things that we focus on with our founders. Well, looking at the time, I can't believe an hour has gone by already. So thank you so much, Peter. It's been such a pleasure to be able to chat with you. If there's anyone that's an e-commerce merchant or knows an e-commerce fashion merchant, I wanted to throw on the screen here how they can get in contact with you and try with Mirra. you can jump onto the trywithmirra.com website. There's a call to action button where you can get a demo. Anything else you want to say on that, Pete?
Just thanks so much for having me on. Kirk, it's I've really enjoyed our conversations. Speaking with you, LeapSheep are doing amazing services with businesses, and I'm really excited to continue speaking and working with you. So yeah, and if anyone's in ecom, please feel free to jump on our website, book a demo. I'll get back to you, and yeah.
Pleasure. Thanks so much, Pete. It's been an absolute pleasure. And just finally, if you're a founder and you're looking for support, you want more clarity on the path to get to product market fit and survive to get there, we're making available free 45-minute startup builder strategy sessions that will help build a plan for your startup to get to product market fit. You can book on our website, or you can use the QR code there. So that wraps up today's call. We've got another fabulous guest coming in 2 weeks, and so we look forward to seeing everyone then. Thanks very much.